Mincha is going to be 7:30. Please be on time. As we continue in the halachot, we talked about 3 domains so far. When it comes to Hilchot Shabbat, we talked about Reshut Rabim, which is a public domain, a public thoroughfare, which is supposed to be 16 amot or bigger, which means that it has to be about 32 feet or wider than that in order for it to be considered a Reshut Rabim. Anything less than that, like a small street, an alleyway, that's less than 16 amot is called a karmelit. It's still a reshut. It's still its own domain. It's still something that is prohibited to carry on a rabbinic level, but it's not a reshut rabim. And yesterday we distinguished between a reshut rabim and a karmelit in the outcome, in the halachot. Aside from one being deoraita and derabanan, the airspace. Oh, we spoke about reshut hayachid, I should say, not about karmelit and reshut rabim. We'll discuss that. And the third domain was reshut hayachid, which is the private domain, which has walls. That's the difference between Reshut HaYachid versus Reshut Rabim and Karmelit. Reshut HaYachid, the private domain, has walls, and the other 2 domains do not have functioning 4 walls that fulfill the criteria of halacha of mechitzot. The 4th domain and the last of the domains is called Makom Ptur. Makom Ptur essentially is a domain that doesn't fit into any of the other 3 domains. And what that basically means is Karmelit, and certainly Reshut Rabim even to a bigger extent, has to have a certain area. So we said Reshut Rabim is 16 amot. What's a Karmelit? The minimum area for a Karmelit to be considered Karmelit is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, which is 4 lengths of a fist by 4 lengths of a fist. If it doesn't have that area, then it's not considered a Karmelit. It's not a place of significance. It's not big enough to be considered a karmelit, which means that if you are in, for example, let's just take one example. If you're in a Reshut Rabim, you're walking in a street, and there's something elevated 3 tfachim off the ground, but doesn't have a platform of 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, that's called a Makom Ptur. I'll give you a few examples. Let's say there was a fire hydrant. The top of that fire hydrant, because a fire hydrant doesn't have 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim in general, they're relatively small. So that space is called Makom Ptur, a place of exemption. That's what it's the literal definition. Another example is a lot of times they have cement or steel poles that they put as barriers, and they're short, they're not so tall, they're very thin, doesn't have 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. You know what that's called? Makom Ptur. Sometimes you could have what's like a picket fence that might be very long, but it doesn't have the width of 4 tfachim. Putting something on top of that would be called a Makom Ptur. Why is a Makom Ptur so important? Because in Hilchot Shabbat, although carrying from Reshut Rabim to Karmelit, from Karmelit to Reshut HaYachid, all of the first 3 domains, if you carry from one to the other, there is a prohibition on a rabbinic level or perhaps a Torah level. But when you carry from Reshut Rabim to Makom Ptur, or from Makom Ptur to Reshut HaYachid, or from one area of Karmelit to Makom Ptur, all of those are mutar. It's not prohibited. It was never included in the prohibition, which plays a very big role in Hilchot Shabbat. It comes out that if I want to take something from the public domain and put it on top of a Makom Ptur, I didn't do any violation of Hilchot Shabbat. It is mutar, and there is no prohibition whatsoever in doing something of that nature. So the only time it's prohibited is you take from one domain to another domain. If it has 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, it's considered a domain. If it doesn't, then it's not considered its own domain, as long as it is raised 3 tfachim from the ground, and its width and perimeter is not 4 by 4, that is defined as a Makom Ptur. And B'ez Hashem, tomorrow we'll see a huge ramification that's relevant to many situations in Shabbat, where Makom Ptur really plays a very important role. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.